Welcome to this little experiment I'm having, but I thought I'd make a casual guide on assembling miniatures. So, the idea is there's a lot of tutorials out there, and this probably isn't the most innovative one, but I find that they tend to overcomplicate things or just give you too strict of a guideline that you think you need to follow it, step by step. So I'm just going to make things clear. You'll need something to cut your models with. I have a, get the logo, Army Painter. Now it's not the go-to brand. It's just one, it's accessible. Two, it's affordable, and it's basically, yeah. Three, it's reliable. You could also get Citadel, the Games Workshop brand, but they're pretty fucking expensive. So you get what you pay for sometimes. I just want to put it out there just because, to get the miniatures in the first place, you'll be spending enough money. I think just trying to figure out options for affordability will save you in the long run. Two, you'll need something to file down mold lines. So, in the casting process, they manufacture pours molten plastic into like two layers of molds that forms these things, and where they meet across here, you get a line that referred to a mold line as well as the sprue connections, so you can see where it connects to the overall frame. Now, on newer miniatures with Games Workshop, you don't really see too many of these because their casting process has probably been the only thing that has improved with their company over the years. But this is a Lord of the Rings uh, model kit. So these are basically, I think, as old as me, roughly around 20 years. So they have a few manufacturing hallmarks. I'll just call them that. So getting something to remove those lines is always good. So here are your options. You can get a file. Now it basically took me 3 years to finally get a set of files, so you don't need it, but it is very nice to have on hand. You can get, I'm gonna, I get deservingly mocked for this, a Citadel mold line remover. Now, word of warning, if you go into an official Games Workshop store, their managers are very good salesmen. They'll fast talk you into buying any stupid thing like this. This was like over $20. Make fun of me for it. Now, despite the excess in price, these are actually kind of handy for older models. They have a firm give to it, and they're very blunt. But that works really well on older Games Workshop models. If you're going to do Age of Sigmar and you're going to play as the Ogre Maw tribes, I actually recommend getting that. And then the blade on this is old, but the idea, Exacto Knife, this is probably your best option to get for removing mold lines and such. Not only is it accessible and affordable, you can just go to a hardware store and they'll just have one of these as well as blade sets, and it just has good utility. You can use it to carve off sprue connections. You can use the backhand end of the blade to basically shave off mold lines. And since most of the Exacto blade refresh the individual packs, you can easily replace the blade once it becomes all shitty like mine. But because I have it, I'll just use a mold line remover. And then you need adhesive. So on newer models, I recommend plastic glue. This is Tamiya. When I first started out, I used testers, but regardless, it should work just fine. Word of warning, always keep your room ventilated and a window open. And then the other option is super glue. Now, when it comes to this option, I don't recommend it on newer models from Games Workshop. On other ones, such as Kings of War and the Mantic brand, super glue can work. Just word of advice, dry fit your models. Like, put the pieces together to get a feel for how they connect before you gunk them up with super glue. But it is a viable option. And now, before I forget to mention, bases. So I'm sure every model kit should come with bases. Unless you get some fancy resin models from Anvil Industries, then you have to pay extra for that. But if you're buying a plastic model kit, they'll come with these. Now, as you can see, there's that rectangular hole shape. Move my thumb over. You can see it from the back here as well. So these, from Games Workshop at least, are they've been phased out for some time. If you play Age of Sigmar, you may see them here and there. 40k, I only think you should get these from like starter sets and like the painting kit where it has like the tiny pots of paint, a brush, and then like 3 models. They'll come with these. And then really old models like this, they'll come with, you see that bar? What they call these are slottas. You can call them slotters, but people just go with the A because I guess they're just hip. But let me just show you exactly how they work. So take your clippers, find the part you're about to chop off. If I can show it well here. Right there. Press down. And I like to give it a little wiggle so you can make sure you cleanly cut off. Again, focus on the sprue connection. Press down and then wiggle when it gives in like that. And then you'll find parts, I don't know if I can get on camera, where there's a sensitive part that is required for gluing. What I recommend is starting away from the piece, chopping, then you can go in and clean up that part. If I can get on focus. Ooh. Basically, as you can see, there's a little peg you require to attach his arm. Then you have the miniature with the slotted part freed up. So you'll want to get glue for this, but just to give a dry fit, here's your base, here's the model. And for a recommendation, have them face forward on the larger part rather than the smaller bit. And then there. Of course, you want to use super glue or plastic glue, but that's how you slot them in, just like that. Now, let me find a mold line. Okay. So there's one across the side of his leg. I don't know if I can get that in focus. Whoops. All you need to do is take mold line remover, the flat end of your blade, this one, and just drape it across it like that. You'll have to apply force, but don't go ham. You don't want to slice your finger. That's happened to me before. Or a file, but to avoid shaving off all the detail, just go at it softly. Check in. Sometimes just clean it up with like a nail. You should get it cleaned up. Yeah, that seems to have done the job. The nice thing about a file is that you can either get the larger part or the smaller part and move around the hard to reach areas of miniatures. Something I feel like the knife and mold line remover don't have all the time. And you can basically just clean up a model from there. Instead of that guy, I want to do a sword guy though. I don't know about Mr. Battle Axe or whomever. So these older models are quite flat. If you can see the top profile, there's not much going on with them. So just take clipper, chop off a part, go with the slaughter. Free up the miniature from the frame. Go in with the clippers again. Oh. Hope this video is as amateur as I am. Go in, basically get the rougher parts left over from the sprue. Now let's demonstrate mold line remover. Go on his shoulder. And you just scrape like that. Also, depending on how young or worried you are about sharp edges, mold line remover is also good for that. Like if you're a parent and your kid wants to get into doing some minor miniatures, something like Lord of the Rings is good for that. Get a mold line remover. They'll have fun just screwing around with a flat piece of metal. Or if you're clumsy like me, and you'll probably, at this rate, if you're using a knife, carve off a good part of your larger fingers. Okay. As you'll go along, you'll get white flakes of plastic left over. Just be sure to wipe them off. And clean your desk when you're done. Or whatever work surface you decide to use. I like to be careful with parts like the weapon because this older plastic's quite soft and prone to the bending and morphing. And I don't need all my Orc Warrior swords to just look like sad and deflated. Okay. Under his skirt thing, why not? So here we are. Cleaned up. As much as I'd care for, really. Okay. The base ready, and I'm going to use plastic glue. That's just my preference. Again, super glue is perfectly viable, but I preferred plastic glue because it's much more forgiving. And the difference between the two is super glue is an adhesive, and plastic glue, despite the name, is more of a chemical bond. What happens is it chemically melts the plastic on both ends, so that once it cures, they become welded together. It's not like you use an adhesive to bond. You basically fuse the two parts. So it's much more secure, but it only works on plastic. Thus the name. It's a chemical solvent for that. So if you're using metal miniatures, which Lord of the Rings has plenty of, or resin as well, plastic glue will not work. Like it'll just do nothing to the miniature. So in that case, super glue is handy to have. But on the topic of resin and metal miniatures, if you're doing 40K or Age of Sigmar, you typically won't need it unless you're messing with some vintage models. So what I do is give it a good shake. Sometimes the lid refuses to give in. Okay. Open it. Be gentle so you don't spill it over your hands. And once the cap is opened, you want to take the brush and slide it on the side of the inner lid so you don't have excess glue or adhesive or whatever you want to call it. And for a slaughter, you want to go aside the bar on both ends. Now a little tip, hit the bottom of their feet. Because not only do you get the adhesion of the bar inside the base, you also get the feet on top of it for added security. Move it forward, and let me take a closer look. Yeah, that looks good. Let me hold them up to the camera. Apologies. And with that, in about 10-ish minutes, it'll be welded to the base right there. And that's basically just my simple guide. I think I'll construct the rest of them on my own without the video going off. I just wanted to give just something more down to earth so people would basically get an idea of how to do all this. And really, even though you think you need a lot of tools, you really don't. I've collected a lot of the ones I've gotten over time. What you need is just clippers, an adhesive of sorts, and then something to remove mold lines. Again, I recommend an Exacto knife if you want utility out of your purchase, and also to not spend $20 on this. But hey, you have options. I'll see you next time.